What I'd like to do is first just take you through a little bit about our company, InMoment, let you know a little bit about us and kind of talk about how we arrived there. We've been around for about 13 years now. We currently work with around 400 global clients, have offices here in Salt Lake, over in Birmingham, England, and also in Toronto. We have around 330 employees, and our main business is experiences. We collect the experiences of guests and customers. In this last year, we collected about 140 million customer reviews. Does anybody know how many reviews Yelp has collected in their 11-year history? So, any guesses? How many think they've collected? Yelp, famous for reviews, right? How many do you think Yelp has collected?
A million.
A little more than that. So Yelp has collected about 75 million reviews. We collected 140 million last year, just to put that in perspective. So we collect a lot of information for a lot of brands. So small companies like we were mentioning locally, Costa Vida, Cafe Rio have been on our platform for about 8-10 years now. But big companies like Hertz, FedEx, and Starbucks, we've been working with Hertz for 9-10 years now. So we collect a lot of data for these businesses. We collect it from you, the guest, right? The customer. Your experience that you have with a brand really does matter. And having a brand that listens to that changes them, right? So we're a cloud-based solution, SaaS-based since our inception 13 years ago. And this is what we focus on doing, is saying, can we use the perceptions of a guest to help steer a business, to help them be successful? As part of this, something that has really become a big key thing for us is culture. We know that if we have happy employees, that we'll have happy clients. And having a great culture is a critical thing. I'd like to just go through our 5 pillars of our business. The first one is simple and elegant. We are uncomplicated, streamlined, clean, and uncluttered. Everything we do has a purpose. There is no need for excess. Bold. We are not afraid to stand out, to be different, to challenge the status quo. We are courageous in our approach. Innovative. We believe in doing things better and in making things better. We are constantly looking for ways to improve. Human. We believe business is personal, and our people-centric approach sets us apart. Human connection is the heart of who we are and what we do. Invested. We take pride in what we do, in not only finishing what we start, but also in exceeding expectations. We are part of our client's success. Something that these 5 pillars kind of evolved into is to what we call our Red Shoes experience. Our goal is to try to give our clients experiences that stand out. So we talk about that like standing out like a pair of red shoes. We hand out this award to our clients every year, and we honor them for the type of experiences they're giving to their customers. So I'm wearing my red shoes today, trying to stand out, right? It doesn't look as good as when you're wearing a suit. For whatever reason, Chuck Taylor's in a black suit looks really good, especially when you're going through the airport. It gets quite a few looks when there's like 5 of you wearing red Chuck Taylors. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what we do, just real quick. Our goal is, again, to try to collect these experiences. Really, it's broken down into 3 categories: listening, understanding, and sharing. Makes sense, right? So the goal is to listen to customers wherever they talk. So we do this on the phone, on the web, mobile devices, and video now. One of the new things we just added recently, all done through, of course, audio and video analytics. It's really kind of cool. So what you say actually gets translated into how businesses steer. We take the feedback from tens of thousands of people for individual locations, boil that up, and say, here's what your customers are saying today. And then send it back out to the store managers to go through and make changes. If you say something happened wrong, say you slipped and fell, you had something funny to eat, made you, had a bad experience after you ate something, or maybe bought something that broke, we can now send that information in real time back to businesses so they know that something went wrong. And they can reach back out to you to fix it. Makes sense, right? Okay, so maybe you've seen one of these before. At the bottom of a receipt, give your feedback, get a free dessert, or whatever it might be. And this is how we collect our information. Now, we have a lot of other ways we also do it. Maybe if you're ordering on an online mobile device or doing electronic, mobile pay, it might come back an electronic receipt. So that's become more and more the wave. As receipts slowly die away, we expect our online business to keep growing that way. We, of course, roll this information up, and deliver it back in really easy ways for store managers to go through and do it. We have about 400,000 people log into our platform a day to know what's going on in their businesses. So a lot of people use us to run their business because we're their kind of heartbeat of how they're performing today. So they can know how an individual store is performing without having to be there. We do all sorts of analytics. Anybody ever heard of Tableau? Or used it? Okay, so high-end analytics product. We have various different hooks and connections into that inside of our application as well. And then we, of course, give our brands the chance to share this information out. So we have a product we call OpenTel that allows us to push that data out. So last year, I think we pushed out about 40 million of those reviews public. So kind of put that in perspective. OpenTel has been on the market now for about 2 years, and it currently has around 60 million reviews public in it. Now, something we do in there that I find is interesting is we only keep the last 6 months in there. I don't know if you've ever gone out and looked at a Yelp review and the last date on it was like 2012 and say, that's accurate. It probably isn't, right? Because most of the places you eat at have about 100% turnover a year, meaning the employees that review is written about haven't worked there in 2 or 3 years. It's probably not accurate. So we only keep the last 6 months of the reviews we have. So if you get a chance, go out and look and type up Costa Vida Provo, and you'll see the OpenTel there show up, and you can go through and see the reviews that just pop up in there on a real-time basis. All right, let's get into the meat of this. I worked at, I'm going to talk about 3 different companies I've worked for. First one is Sterling Wentworth, a financial software company. I went and worked right after I finished my MBA. I got my finance degree down at BYU and my MBA at the University of Utah. Then I went off and worked at Sterling Wentworth, and they were a bootstrap company. What does it mean it's a bootstrap? Anybody bootstrapped a business before? I heard there's a couple people here I know that started their own business up. Okay, not outside funding, not formalized VC money. So bootstrapping is going to your mom and dad, to your uncle, to your nephew, and saying, hey, you got a few bucks? and starting your business off that way. Bootstrap was a VC-funded company. I helped raise $20 million for that company. It was a full-on .com, 2.5 years. We spent $20 million. We closed the doors. Hallelujah, fantastic experience, right? I sort of learned a lot. InMoment, a bootstrap company. And I'll talk a little bit about the differences between these and kind of how that really affects you. I think some of you are actually in the process of starting up businesses, so hopefully this gives you a little bit of perspective from my experience. So VC versus bootstrap, there's different types of pressure between this. There just is. There's different types of culture. When you take someone else's money, surprisingly, they actually care what you do with it. And they can be like down on top of you all the time. Different types of ownership. And this is a big piece I'll try to draw out here as well. Different types of control. And the reality is some business can only be started with one of these models or the other. So you're going to have to evaluate what space you're in. If you've got a 10-year product life cycle to bring a product to market, you probably aren't going to be able to bootstrap that. You might be a pharmaceutical company too, so it won't matter. All right, the VC company. I'd like to tell a parable of the business executive. I need someone, maybe someone who's really ambitious to come up here and help me. Anyone else going to come up? Come on, you're looking at me. Come on up here. There you go. Come on up, come on up. I just need you to help me talk this through if that's okay.
Okay.
All right, so here's what I want you to imagine. We're up in the mountains, okay? And there is this beautiful mansion on the hill. It's a gorgeous place. It's got an indoor pool. It's awesome. Off to the side is this big toy garage full of every single kind of toy you can imagine. Okay. Snowmobiles, ATVs, the whole thing. Off to the side is a set of where the horses are kept, right, over in the stables. It's looking pretty good, right?
Right.
Here's what I need you to do. I need you to go through and give 110%. I need you to really dig deep. Give your heart and soul to this company. And if you can do that for me, someday all of this will be mine. Go ahead and take a seat. All right. Welcome to VC funding. Thank you. You're very nice. I appreciate it. It's interesting. I'll share a couple stories with you about that. Thanks for being here. Come here. Here you go. Something for you. So maybe someone else will volunteer. Okay. I should have said I had tchotchkes. it's interesting to watch. We just recently bought a competitor of ours, a company that was similar in size but was run less efficiently than we were. So we were worth about 3 times as much as they were. So we were able to buy them even though they had double the number of employees we did. It's kind of one of those weird ones. We had 110 employees. They had 180. We bought them, right? So in that process, they were the same age as we were, about the same amount of revenue. And when we went and bought this company, this was about 2 years ago, as we were in the negotiations and talking, we paid tens of millions of dollars for this business and went through and said, you know what, we're going to be better and stronger together. Well, after all the pricing negotiating and stuff was done with their investors, right? We bought it from the investors. I learned a little bit about where some of that money went. Now, you'd think some of the employees would get some of that, right? They've been there working, the founder would get some money and everything. So we spent, $40+ million on this business. How much money do you think the founder made? $4 million. Anyone else? Higher or lower? Lower? $2 million, okay. $400,000. 13 years of this person's life, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of money going without pay. And after taxes of 50%, he cleared just under $200,000 because he lives in Toronto. So, worth it? Why did he only make $200,000 after it was said and done? Investors took all of it. 4 rounds of funding, and especially the first round. The first round of money set all of everything else in order. Took money early, took money with bad terms, took money with ratchets in it. I don't know if you guys know some of this stuff, but basically there's all sorts of nasty things that can be done when you take VC money. Most of the time, most people don't talk about it. You get burned by this stuff. It's like Rumpelstiltskin. He'll come and give you what you want, but then come back and take your firstborn. And that's what happens if you're uninformed and you go through and do it too soon. That first round can kill businesses. There are businesses up and down that we know right now. $1 billion businesses just down the street from here, which everyone's heard of Vivint, right? You ever heard of Vivint? How much did they go through and sell for? Anybody remember? $2.4 billion. Pretty awesome, right? Well, it might surprise you. My company has had more employees pay off their mortgages than Vivint. Why? First round of funding, right? It's kind of wild to think about. So we hear these big things thrown around. Everyone hears these big things of money. Well, I don't think I'd want to go through and work for 13 years for a payout of $200,000 at the end of it. I'd rather put my money into a CD. It'll be worth $200,000 in 13 years. Come on, that's just crazy. So why does that happen? Well, that's the thing in the wake-up call sometimes with VC money. You just have to be careful. You don't know what you're going to get into. Okay. So the Bootstrap company. I've bootstrapped a couple companies. One I founded, one I worked with. And you end up with things like this, where in ours, the table was from my mother-in-law's for the first couple of years. It was a nice table. It was just, none of the chairs in your conference room match. And why is that? Because you don't want to go spend $500 for a chair. Who's going to spend $500 for a chair when you can go through and do something else with it, right? So you use used furniture. And surprisingly, there's an awful lot of it just floating around. We happen to be in an office building that I knew some of the people with, and I asked them if we could move into their storage facility for free. They said, yeah, you can do that for 6 months. And then they would call us up and tell us anytime a tenant moved out, and they were nice to us because we told them we were desperate and didn't have much money. And there's so many businesses out there, free office furniture. They pay people to take it away right now, just so you know. So if you need office furniture, there's businesses that are paying someone else to come haul it off. Go pick up your own. Desks don't need to match. You can run your business without matching desks. And running out of money is just a matter of doing business. It's an interesting thing when you go through and talk about how you can build a business. We built ours on $40,000 of money from myself and one other individual. Not a lot of money. And we went without pay for months. I went without pay for about 1.5 years. Now, I could do that luckily because my wife went through and did some work from home. I was able to do that. Now, if you have a chance, how many of you happen to live at home? Anybody live at home here? There you go. So you live at home. Well, that's probably your home though. So yeah, that's not fair. I already called you out. But yeah, it's okay. Figure out ways to do it. I tell you, it is so worth it to incubate your own idea. Okay, so the problem with raising money is once you have a payroll, What happens when you can't pay it? That's when it becomes difficult. Now, how many of you have started up an idea or would like to start up an idea? Okay, great. That's fantastic. Okay, so for those of you that are in process right now, do you believe you're going to be able to get this idea off the ground the first time? So this is just a short little video clip. We'll kind of show this here. Oh, my videos aren't playing. Crap. You didn't make it. You know what? It's so worth it. I'm going to just do a quick reboot. I don't know what happened, but I'm going to apologize here while I do this. Come on, end. I thought we checked that. I think it was just the sound that was working. I apologize, but I really want to make sure my videos work for you guys. So one thing that happens, and I'll just let this restart real quick. As an entrepreneur, we all believe that we're going to make it the first time. And the tough thing is, it doesn't always happen. And that's where it becomes difficult, because it's those contingencies where you're honing your idea, you're tuning that idea, and you're trying to figure out what's going to work. And having someone else's money burning at the back of you, knowing that you have to pay it back, knowing that you have to do all these things, that's when you start making kind of a little bit careless decisions. And that's one of the things that I've learned is if you can incubate your idea, get it to the point where it's more viable, then taking someone else's money, you're not going to get yourself in that situation where 13 years later you only make $200,000. And that's happened more than once, that's for sure. The first time you go in to present to these VCs, I mean, they like treat you so awesome. It's like amazing. I've been into a few dozen of these places, and every time you walk in, there are beautiful glass buildings and wonderful kind of things, and they talk to you like this. And I'd feel really cool about myself. I'm like, oh, well, what I'd like is a little bit of your money. And they're totally willing to talk about that. The problem is they know that it takes about 3 times to get there. And entrepreneurs forget this. So they set up this thing and they have you believe it's all going to go there. And the reality is you're going to have to try 3 times. Just be prepared for it and realize that's what you're going to have to go through. It's better to do that in an incubator stage than it is with VC money. Because when you run out of money on that first idea and you're not quite there and you have to tune it, guess what when you show up? They're going to talk to you like this. And you're totally screwed. I mean, you're so screwed. Because you're giving your company up at that point in time because you've got this, hey, my payroll is $50,000 a month or whatever it is, and you're like, what do? The whole business falls apart now because it's dependent on cash. I was talking with Seth Nyman, a guy during the dot-com age, made a few $1 billion. Funded a bunch of big companies out there. And he told me, the interesting thing, he asked me a question. He goes, what is it that makes a business die? And I had this fancy answer. And he goes, no, it's cash. Cash kills a business. And that's the problem. So if you've taken money from somebody, we took some money from some angels when we were about 1.5 years old, and our idea was getting really viable, and we were getting some traction. We thought, now's probably a good time to take some. We took a little bit of money, and we gave up about 12% of our business. Not very much, right? Seems like a good idea. Well, here's the interesting thing. We missed our first hurdle just barely, and part of the clause in there was that they could, because we negotiated a higher valuation, we gave them a concession that they could control when they sent us cash. My mistake, right? I mean, stupid. But you don't know that stuff, right? Well, we missed the first hurdle. They say no more cash. We'd had 3 months of cash. They cut it off. Well, they went through and told me I had to hire certain people, and this video is a good example of when that happens. Suffice it to say, we didn't like that head of sales. He wasn't a very good guy. And we were forced to hire him because they said if you want your next payment, then you have to hire this person. So does the VC have to have a controlling interest in your company? No. If they control the cash and you're dependent upon it, they are firmly in control of your business. And that's kind of a sad day. You wake up and go, wait a second. So we bought those guys out like really quick. We went through and raised some money and bought out our angels because we said we don't want this anymore. So it made that, oops. We'll go to the next one here. So one thing I learned is that the world is, I needed to have models for myself when I was getting out of school, right where the phase you guys are at, and trying to interpret, make some decisions. One of the models I came up with here is what I call kings, lords, and serfs. And the idea of this was to help me understand the world a little bit more. And I'll just play this video here. So I don't know about any of you, but what did you want to be when you grew up? Anybody want to be a fireman, an astronaut, or any of those other kind of things, right? I think that's kind of some of the cliche ones, right? Well, I don't think any of you wanted to claw your way up to middle management per se. That's not what we sit there and dream of when we're kids. We have these wild aspirations. Well, as an entrepreneur, you get to dream again. You get to say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, this was my idea, trying to figure out a model for the world out there. And the first one I have is I call kings. And these are people who, through little effort of their own, are successful. They either are born into it or fall into it. I think we all have a friend that is like this. I mean, you're like, oh, really? That person's successful? And it's kind of interesting to look at it. The reason I call them kings is I believe the laws of the land don't necessarily apply to them. They're just kind of outside of the normal. Things just happen and they got lucky, and that's great for them. It's unlikely to happen to you, right? The next group of people here I call serfs. These are just people, and it's just everyday people working for the man. And the key thing in here is they don't know the value they create, therefore they don't get the pay they deserve. Okay, that's a critical piece. Don't know the value they create. If you don't know the value you're creating, don't expect to be paid what you deserve. It's not going to happen. So keep a critical point there. Next one, lords. These are people who take a personal risk. They're sacrifice, right? I call these the employee entrepreneur, if you will. I had a lot of them working for me. People that went without pay to go through and actually become an owner in a business. Think of the old feudal knights, right? If you go off and fight for the king, you get a piece of land. Same kind of idea. In this case, you get a piece of a business, and you get a piece of the say. You get a piece of the ownership. And when you go through and say, if you're out of cash, I went to my 10 employees at the time and said, there's $7,000 in the bank. We don't have enough money to do what we want to do this next month. I can go raise money. I have people who want to give it to us right this moment, or we can go without pay for the next 6 months. We all went without pay for 6 months because they made the decision, not me. I let them choose on that one. And they were the owners in the business now. So, kind of fun. All right. The employee entrepreneur. These are just things I'd like to give to you as you get ready to graduate, get ready to start your own business, or go work at a business. These are key metrics for you to go through and evaluate some things. You need to think about you're going to work at a startup. This can be an old business or a new business. It doesn't matter. You need to think of it that way. Think about your role that you're going to play in it and how you're going to evaluate it. And I got 3 different ways for you to evaluate it here. The first one is to look at what I call fit. And this is really kind of look at yourself and say, is this what you're good at? The next one is what I call your value. What is your core value to that business, to that position? Again, if you don't know the value you create, don't expect to be paid well. And the next one is ask this question, can I be a key employee? We'll talk about that. All right, first one, evaluating fit. So 3 questions. What do I like doing? What am I good at? And what are people willing to pay me for it? Now, I know this seems pretty reasonable. You guys are in college, but does everybody in here know what they want to be when they grow up yet? I didn't. I didn't at all. So this actually helped me a lot. Helped me kind of get in and kind of review really what I said I should be doing. I believe you need to have 2 of these to really go through and have a good job. And yes, you'll see there's a lot of jobs that just don't have 2. They just don't. So what is this job? It's something I like. I'm not very good at it, but people are not willing to pay me a lot of money for it either. What is that exactly? Exactly. It's a hobby, right? Don't do that as a living. You're going to starve, right? Unless that's what you want to do, then so be it. What if it's something you don't like, but you happen to be good at it, but you don't get a lot of pay for it? There's not a lot of value associated with this thing you're good at. Anybody have a skill like that? I have skills like that. People are not going to pay me a lot of money for those. But I like them, right? Or I'm good at it, right? It just depends. Well, this is a job. The majority of jobs out there are filled by people who are a qualified applicant. That's a terrible term, isn't it? Qualified applicant. You qualified for the job. Congratulations. We're going to pay you what we feel we should pay you. Okay. Yeah, that's going to suck. You're not going to be happy. You're going to be working for the man, and you're going to be grumpy, and maybe show up on TV at a rally or something. I don't know. Or something else, right? But what if you're good at it and people are willing to pay you a lot of money? Well, guess what? This is a good job. It is. You go through and say, wow, I'm in the top 5%. If you're going to get a job that you happen to have your best core skills and people are willing to compensate you well for it, well done. That's why you're going to college. That's where you're trying to figure out what you can do. All right. What if you like it and you're good at it? This is a job that'll make you content. And that's good too. Again, if you get 2 of these, my opinion is it's a good job. So it depends upon what you want to do. Are you out there trying to be rich, or are you out there trying to be content? It depends. I have friends on both sides, and really the question is, please be in control of where you're going. Think about what you're doing instead of just arriving somewhere and wondering how in the world you got there. I have a brother-in-law that he's young 40s, and that's not interesting to say, isn't young 40s, and he's surprised where he's at. And I'm like, man, you know what? Be in charge of where you're going. Be in control of your destiny. Don't let it make those decisions for you. All right. So what is this particular job? Let's say you're not good at it. I already put it up there. Shoot. Sorry. But you're not good at it. You don't like it. You don't get a lot of pay. This used to be a government job. But there's a really sad facts happened in the last 7 years. Apparently, this is the one that it is now. You actually get paid more for a government job. So if you're out looking for get good pay, they've actually passed in a lot of cases the government job. So go for that one. So this is my job, though. I'm lucky enough to do something that I love doing, that I really am good at, and I get good pay for it. And that's what you want to do as an entrepreneur, is set the terms for your success. That's really what you're trying to do. Okay, so where is your value? Where is your core value? So if you sit there and think about your core skills, now with that in mind, thinking about what people are going to compensate you for, evaluate what is your core skill. And if you're going somewhere, how many of you are actively working a full-time job right now? I know there's probably a bunch of you in here. Okay. So think about your current job for those of you that are doing that right now. So I'm already at 15 minutes. I got like 30 to go. We'll be fine. But think about your core skills you've got. There's a bunch of unrelated skills you probably have to do in this job too. Evaluate that and say, wow, you know what? I'm doing all this other stuff. I'm not very good at it. I can't go in and demand more pay for it. But then there's things what we call your sister skills, right? And these are things that are associated. And when you evaluate the kind of what benefit you're creating for the business, this is what it means to be an employee entrepreneur. Sit there and say, well, hey, my core ability here I get 5x for, but I'm only spending 15% of any given day doing my core stuff. How do you go through and get more of your time spent on your core stuff, that your core skills that you're good at? And then what are your sister skills associated with that you can go through and do as well? This is how you raise yourself up in any business. You think beyond what your job is, and you think about what value you're creating. And that's all being an entrepreneur is just thinking about how you can create value. All right. Last one, becoming a key employee. I had my first company I worked for, Sperry Wentworth. I had a mentor there. He was my boss, and I had a chance to talk with him a little bit about my career. And I'd been there about a year and a half, had my first compensation review, and I got a COLA. Everybody know what a COLA is? Cost of living adjustment. And I was like, wow, I got a 2.3% raise. That sucks. And it was like, it was my first raise. And I went to him and I said, well, how can I go through and get compensated better for the things I'm doing? And his response to me was, well, you just need to become more key around here. And I asked him to explain that, and he did not have a model for me. He says, well, we'll know it when we see it. I'm like, oh, great. So my career is dependent upon some kind of art form interpretation. And I didn't like that at all. It was like bothering me like crazy. I was like, I'd like to have a little bit more kind of success built into what I'm doing instead of just being blessed with success because I came up with the right viral video or whatever it might be. So I came up with these 4 steps. First step here is what I call the scarcity step. Learn something of value that no one else knows, and you're key by the act of that scarcity. So you've got some capability that you've learned in this business that no one else knows. Now, this is valuable because obviously it's a supply and demand problem, right? The problem comes is if you stay here. This becomes what I call the Gollum stage. Precious, and you've got your little thing, you hold on to it, and you become that weird employee who's the only one who knows how to make the printer work or something stupid. Okay, you're not that valuable anymore. You're just the person who fixes the printer. So think past it. Once you learn something, the most important thing about step 1 is moving past it quickly to step 2, which is to teach someone else that one thing that you learned. And now you're valuable because you duplicated knowledge in a business. For a growing business, this is a critical problem. Duplicating knowledge is critical to the success of that business. The next step is to think outside the box. Go back to value creation. Think about how you can help the business grow. Create something of value. It may not be in your job description, but come up with an idea that can grow the business. Now you're key because you're an innovator. You're helping the business grow beyond its standard model. Don't accept the business's model as set in stone. There's no business model that's set in stone. Any business that's there and that model's set in stone, you need to leave quickly because that business will go out of business. You already know that. You're in school. Everything changes. So be in there to try to help shape it. Step 4, teach others now to do the same thing you did, to innovate, to help move the company. Now you're key because you're a leader. So these are what I call my steps of keyness, and we actually use this in our compensation reviews with our employees. All right, leadership and values. When you go to a company and you listen to people talk at the water cooler, something that's really important to listen to is how people talk about it. If a friend works there, ask them some questions. Listen to how that person talks about it. If they talk about it in terms like my job versus my company, there's a big difference there. My job is someone who's trapped. They're trapped in their job. This is my job. And they kind of resign to their fate. Versus this is my company, and this is what my company does. This person knows what their company does. They know the value that's there, and they're excited about the opportunity. It's small things like that that want to tip you off to being in a place you want to go that's going to be able to be innovative and really help feed you. All right. Next analogy I have here is one I call swimming with gold. Does anyone want to come up and be a volunteer? You don't have to. Come on up. All right. Okay. Come here. Can you just hold that for me? I want you to do this. I just want you to hold it straight out. Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, so this analogy I call swimming with gold. The idea is this. You're a half mile from shore, and there's 90 pounds of gold on the boat. The boat is sinking. How do you get 90 pounds to shore? Is there any chance you can swim with 90 pounds?
No.
No. You're going down, right? Well, something good happened. You have 5 of your friends on the boat with you. Now each of you, that's only an 8-pound weight, right? That's an 8-pound weight. So each of you can take 15 pounds, strap it to your back. Can you swim a half mile now? Are you up for the task? Possibly, right? It's still a lot of work. Still a lot of work to go through and get there. But something amazing happens when you share out the gold. Hanging in there?
Yeah,
Good.
I'm good.
Something amazing happens is that you're able to go through now and get all the gold to shore. And surprisingly, it's like the loaves and fishes. You end up with 150 pounds of gold because it grows. Because when you're willing to share your business with your employees, their interest is your interest and vice versa. And you always end up with more. Okay, you can give that to me. You're like way too strong. Okay, here you go.
I was struggling. Does that help?
No, I guess it does a little bit. Okay. All right, so what to expect? So you're going through school, you're learning a lot, you're coming up with metrics, come up with all these ideas. You got to put them into actual reality now, right? I'd like to tell you the parable of the great sea captain. If you're going to go off and start your own business, this is an important parable. Has anybody heard of the parable of the great sea captain? Okay. So the great sea captain was famous because in every naval battle that he'd gone into, he'd won. And it kind of became this mythical lore among the crew. And the first mate would always be there right at his side. If there was an enemy vessel spotted on the horizon, the great sea captain would turn to his first mate and say, "Fetch me my red shirt." And the great sea captain put his red shirt on, they'd go into battle and they'd win. So it's kind of lore built up about this whole red shirt. Well, the captain never told his crew why he put a red shirt on. Well, the reason was he didn't want any of his crew to see him bleed because he wanted to have faith and believe in him as they went into battle, so they went in with confidence. Much like starting your own business, right? You got to go in with confidence. Anybody sees you sweat, they're all running. They're running for the hills when you tell them, "Hey, we're going to do this without pay." I'm supposed to be excited about that? Yeah. Well, one day, there was an enemy armada of ships spotted on the horizon. First mate turns up to the great sea captain. Great sea captain turns to his first mate and says, "Fetch me my brown pants." All right. So there you go. And being an entrepreneur, it means you need to be adaptive, right? You got to be able to deal with things in different ways. Violent execution. A lot of times we work our ideas to death, to the point where we don't ever move. It is so much better to violently execute an okay idea than it is to massage that idea to perfection before you begin. Most entrepreneurs succeed purely out of determination. The best skill an entrepreneur can have is just to be determined. Everybody thinks Steve Jobs was a genius. Anyone ever use the Lisa? Or some of the other, the Newton? I mean, come on, let's be straight about it. Some of these were not as good of ideas. But he did not give up. The best entrepreneurs out there, up and down our neighborhood as well, these are all people who just didn't give up. That's the most important thing about being an entrepreneur, is not giving up. Okay, so if you go out and start your own, there was a young lady up here at the front talking about her business that she's starting right now. And guess what? You have to do all sorts of difficult things before you have a clientele built up, before clients are fully there. We built a SaaS company. Well, guess what? We've been building on that same platform for 13 years, and we're still building on it. And we're going to keep building on it, which means when we started out, well, it was kind of like this. So you're going to put your customers through some difficult times. And you're going to figure out ways to make it work. And you're going to punish your customers a bit. But that's how you get a company off the ground and bootstrap it. Anyone heard of Gastronomy, Market Street Grill? So they've been on our platform for 13 years, and I cannot believe the things we put them through in the first few months in the first year. And we learned a whole lot of things. But customers love companies that are scrappy like that. And you can go out and do this. I hope the key thing I can teach you, oops, I'll let him play. So I really do feel there's a lot of awakening with this when it comes to entrepreneurship. A lot more people should be starting their own businesses instead of just going off and working somewhere. Or if they do go off, please go off to a place that's entrepreneurial and is looking for employees who want to be entrepreneurs. Wake up to the ideas. Wake up to the possibilities. And understand that please try to bootstrap your company first. Money's not a bad thing. It's just when you don't know yet or you haven't figured it out yet, it can be a little dangerous for you. I'd like to open it up for questions. If any of you have questions, we've got about 5 minutes left.
I think you talked about scarcity. Scarcity has to have value. So I used this with a friend of mine. The dodo bird has no value. So you have to be careful about how you choose your terms, I guess.
Yeah. No, true. And you could, again, if you're going through and doing something for business, find something that's core to its success instead of the guy that's in charge of the printer, right? It's a good point. Good point. Other questions? Yeah.
What's some of your next steps for your company?
So we're in the process right now of pretty broad expansion, and we're getting to the point where we're growing too fast to be able to self-fund it. So we're actually going through and looking to bring in some outside money to expand. So we're in an interesting phase here because we've bootstrapped it for a long, long time, and now we're like, wow, the market's growing so fast, we have to take advantage of it. So we're at a tipping point right now where we're saying, we're going to have to go out and raise some money because we're growing too fast to be able to self-fund it anymore. It's an interesting state to be at for us. Yeah?
You said, the idea that it's not a good idea to have funding like right off the bat. How do you manage otherwise? What can you do to make up for that, I guess?
What we did is we let employees get a chance to have ownership. So we had people, there was 10 people that worked without pay for 9 months. And there were more that worked for longer without it. And then they ended up with ownership in the company, and now their homes are paid off. So what do? You sell a dream. You sell a possibility. And ownership. Our whole company is employee owned. So we have a few outside investors, but the majority of our company is employee owned. So going through and sharing that among a lot of people, our company's worth $200 million now. And so you say, well, about a third of our employees hold stock. So it cuts across the range of how long they've been there. But we give options out every year to the top tier, the top third of our employees.
So, Professor said at the beginning that you had some failure before. So what got you to the point of being at a low point and get to your high point now?
So we'd raised $20 million for our online collaboration company, Bootstrap. We died, we were one of those companies a few years before Facebook, right? So we started that business up in '99. We were out there competing with companies like MySpace and trying to build an online sharing community. And we spent $20 million, burned through it, and went to zero. Company didn't work. The idea was flawed, and we didn't adapt. Or it was too early, a host of other ideas, right? no matter what, it failed. So walking away from that, I had a chance to go through and say, well, starting up another business, do I want to go through and take money? Because the one thing I saw with a VC-funded company, they make you do really weird things. Spend a lot of money like crazy, and somehow that's going to make you successful. It doesn't always make you successful. It can make some money, but it doesn't always. Spending money doesn't necessarily mean you're being innovative, right? I outspent you. I don't know what that means. I'd rather out-innovate anybody. We compete with companies that have raised, two of our biggest competitors, both of them have raised over $250 million. We've raised $450,000 to the point, and we're competing just fine with them. And so it all depends on what we want to build, right? So, other questions? All right, thank you, appreciate it.